Hello, welcome back, whatever is appropriate for you. I am reshooting this intro for the third time because the first time I overestimated what I would be able to get done in the weekends and therefore in the video. The second time I got the sort of scope right, but I got the video scope wrong. So I filmed a lot of video, like over an hour, and I realized no one really wants to watch me ramble about Game UI for one straight hour. So I'm splitting this video, which was originally one idea, into 3 different videos. I'm going to talk about Game UI. Also, by the way, hi, I'm Savalian, software dev / creative, and we're going to be talking about video game UI from the perspective of a game player, an amateur game dev, someone who is not a UI designer. I am a professional software engineer. I work on apps, but the UI always is designed before it gets to me. I just implement it. I just take the pretty pictures that I get and I put them into code to make the UI. So I don't professionally have any training. Well, I think I took one UI class in college about 1,000 years ago. But what I want to do in this video is use a skill that I think is really important, which is thinking critically about art that you're seeing, analyzing it, and learning what you can do as a fellow artist based on what this other art is doing. So I'm going to start up some games. We're going to look at the UI. In some cases I just have screenshots, but I'm going to play the game, look at how the UI feels, what it does for the player, what it looks like, how the different pieces of it work together or not. There are going to be some good examples and some bad examples. Now, this is my opinion. This is what I feel when I'm looking at and playing the game. You might disagree, and that's okay. It's okay to have different preferences than I do, and it's even okay to say out loud that you disagree, but don't yell at me. You know, that's just not cool. Don't yell at me in the comments if you think I'm just horribly wrong. This is all very subjective. So I've split up the games from my initial recording so that I have kind of some that I really like and some that I don't really like in each video, so hopefully there will be a balance. And the overall goal is for me to gain knowledge to design a UI for my own game, which is an auto chess game that I've codenamed Project Caribou, where you summon cute critters to defend a town for monsters. So that's kind of the headspace I'm going into this with. I'm looking for things that would fit into my game, but there's a lot of games that aren't like my game. In fact, almost all of them are very different games, the ones I'm going to be looking at. So I'm going to be looking for more general lessons overall. Did that make sense? Was that too rambly? I don't know. Let's get into it. And so the first one I've looked at was Potionomics. I'm streaming Potionomics right now. I'm almost done with it. And the art in Potionomics is lovely, and the UI is also lovely. That being said, it has some good things and also some bad things that I wanted to point out. The first thing is that the art style is incredibly handmade. It's very painterly. Every piece of UI is very much crafted for the individual screen. They don't reuse a lot of elements here. And this is way too complex for me to do as a one-person team who's not particularly skilled at graphic design. So they clearly have strong artists on their team, and they're gonna be able to do things that I just can't do, and that's okay. I think it's important to recognize your own skill level and the skill level of the game you're looking at, and don't get too discouraged by things that you feel like you could never do. what we can still do is learn from this and think about how we can apply things they're doing to our games. So one thing I did notice is that they use the same font for everything in the game, with just slight changes to the style, color, or size, so like it's bold or maybe italicized in different places. If you can get away with this and it doesn't look like boring, I think it's a great option because it's easier to implement just one type of font, but also it makes everything feel more consistent. It's really not a great idea to use many fonts. There's definitely a balance here, and less is usually more with fonts. One little detail that I love that I didn't even notice while I was playing is that when customer patience goes down, the hourglass icon on the patience indicator actually drains. It actually gets less full as the patience goes down, which is a fun thing, and there's undoubtedly tons of little details like that in this game where something on the UI changes in such a minor way to match the information that it's presenting to you. And you can also see UI elements move a little bit when something happens to them, just to sort of draw your eye, say, hey, you should know about this. Like the patience button expands for a moment when it goes up or down. There's a sound as well. I haven't thought that much about UI sounds, but I probably should. I probably should start thinking about that. And I think just all these little details really make the experience feel complete and immersive. There's also a lot of UI in Potionomics that is skeuomorphic. I believe that's how you say that word, and I also believe it's the word that I want here. But basically, the way I understand this is it's when the UI looks or feels like the real thing it represents. It makes your UI representation a little bit more realistic in a way. So, for example, the objective and information screens look like books with different pages for different like tabs of the book. The cauldron looks like a cauldron, and you physically drop the ingredients in and they sit in the center of the cauldron as you're brewing. The store shelves are actually drawn out shelves that you place the potions on, even though they aren't the shelves in your shop. They're a drawing of the shelves, so this one's kind of in between a little bit. And basically everything in this game, everything in this UI is deeply integrated with the gameplay. It's really not like a lot of RPGs, for example. You have the HUD that sort of sits on top. It's separate from the game world and it's separate from the actions you're taking. This UI it just feels like everything is connected. One specific place where I feel like they could have done better in the Potionomics UI is in like sort of usability. So in this game, when you brew potions, you have all these different ingredients that have different amounts of these magical vitamins called magimins, and it's very important that you're able to find which ingredient has the type of magimins you want and in the correct ratio. So there is a filter. You can filter for any ingredients that have each of the 5 magimins. But I really wanted more here because once you get to 100 plus ingredients unlocked, double checking each one that has Magimin A to find which one has the most or which one has only Magimin A and nothing else, it takes a long time. And I think this is why, as I've played the game, it's taking me longer and longer to do anything. It hasn't gotten to the point where I'm frustrated yet, but I really, really wish there was just a little bit more sort of quality of life here to make filtering easier so that I could just sort of pop in, find what I need, get it in the cauldron, and move on. In a similar vein, none of the other menus where you deal with ingredients have the filtering at all. So the shop where you buy new ingredients does not have a filter. Your inventory to see what you have does not have a filter. The gardening menu where you can grow more ingredients does not have a filter. all of these menus, all you can see is the icon for what that is, and then if you hover, you can see the measurements. So I really think there's a way to cleanly represent information about the different ingredients so you can glance at them and not have to hover each individual one at a time, figure out what you're looking for, and then like slowly pick through to find it. There has to be something, and I think it would really improve this a lot. So taking a close look at the Potionomics UI reveals that playtesting is going to be super important, especially playtesting through to the late game, because all of these problems I'm mentioning were not really that important in the early game because you only had like 8 ingredients that you could use. But as I've unlocked more and more, it's really scaled up how tedious this process can be. Still, this is a really fun, cute, enjoyable game, and I'm having a lot of fun. I'm excited to finish it, but I'm having a lot of fun. Going Medieval is another game that I have played recently, and their UI is interesting because they have a lot of information to show to the user. So they have a challenge in doing that in a way that isn't too cluttered. I will also mention they're still in early access. They have a pretty small team. I don't want my criticisms, my notes to be like dragging the game. I think they're doing a great job, but there's some things that I didn't quite like about the UI in this game, and there were some things that I did like. For one, I think they did a good job on the colonist visuals. You have this nice little background gradient, their name, their gear, their current activity. It's very clean. I like how it looks on screen, and it tells me the useful information I need to know about all of my little people. What I don't love is the materials menu. It's these drop downs along the side of the screen, and I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't have any ideas for how else you can display this information, but I don't like looking through it, and it can get really long and complicated as you collect more items. And it's not always obvious to me what the icons mean, especially early, like as you're still encountering things for the first time. The menus themselves are fine, but something about the color scheme is putting me off a little bit. The teal blue and the like off-white yellow don't really land for me. It could be because I just really dislike yellow. I also feel like the embellishments on the UI, like the borders and the background patterns, they're just a little bit too busy, like too noticeable. I feel like they distract from the information and they make it a little bit hard to see what's important. And after looking at the game a little bit more, I think one of the things that bothers me is that many of the HUD elements use slightly different shades of certain colors, or the style of the elements are a little different. It's not very consistent. So like, for example, the top blue buttons have yellow icons and white text. The blue buttons on the bottom have white icons and what looks like a different border around the buttons. And then the top right blue buttons look the same as the top left, but they have white icons instead of yellow. And they might have a lighter background, it's hard to tell. And then in some places we have UI with this gray-black background instead of the blue. And then we're still using the yellow accents on that, so we're kind of mixing and matching colors here in a way that I'm not sure quite works for me. And then at the same time we have accent colors that are not the same in every situation. So we have this yellow color, but then we also have some buttons that use an orange as an accent color. And because you can see all of these elements on screen at the same time, it just feels a little bit chaotic. It's still perfectly usable. I've played this game, I've enjoyed it, I haven't had too much trouble finding what I need, but it just kind of feels a little bit off, a little bit unpolished. And then you also have some screens that are just too busy, The texture background on the job screen or the schedule screen, it just adds too much. There's too much on the screen, and this background pattern is not helping. Like, it's not adding anything. It's just sort of there to look nice. But with the charts, with these grids of numbers, it's just a lot. It's a lot to look at. And then you also have some text that I'm guessing will probably be removed as they figure out a different way to display it. But we have this like priority 1 is done first, or jobs prioritized left to right. It kind of looks like it was just thrown in here, but maybe it was. Maybe they're working on this one. So overall, good game. Like I said, I enjoyed this game. They've updated it recently, I think, to add cats, which is fun. But overall, the UI has all these little things working against it that they don't necessarily add up to a player getting stuck or just not playing, but I think they create this undercurrent of like discomfort a little bit. And if they just, polish it up, make things a little bit more consistent, I think it'll be much more powerful as a game. So that is one thing I'm going to keep in mind. I'm going to look for some of these things as I work on my own UI and see how well I can do. I may not do any better. We'll see. Next up is Dinkum. This is a small town farming, gathering, fishing, crafting game. Kind of in the style of like Animal Crossing, except it's not tied to real time. The game time progresses on its own. The game is very cute, but it is also set in a fantasy version of Australia. So there are a lot of legitimately dangerous things in the world. So you have this like juxtaposition almost of everything's very cute and fun, but then you do have to worry about being killed, basically. I think you just pass out, but you get attacked by a crocodile. I think we all know what's happening here. So the primary color in Dinkum's UI is a bright yellow, which is my least favorite color. I really don't like yellow, but it actually doesn't bother me here. And I think it's because it feels like it feels like it belongs here, and the overall style of the UI is very calm. It's very unintrusive. They use some like background patterns. Animal Crossing does this too, where they're kind of just simple repeated shapes that sort of fade into the background. All of the UI is very minimal. It's very rounded, mostly flat colors. The text is very clear, easy to read. And I think by using these bright colors on a UI that's otherwise very simple and very plain, I think it just feels like it belongs. It makes it bright and interesting, and I just think it works somehow. The HUD is nice, and I was looking at the HUD because this is the main part of the game that's really going to be relevant to me, is just what is displayed to the user and where it's displayed. So they don't take up a lot of space on the HUD. They only put what's absolutely necessary: the day and time, the player health and stamina, your little tool hotbar, and the mini map. All of this is done very simply. You don't need a lot of text here to like explain what it's doing. Just very clean. And then in the menus and things, everything, like I said, is flat. It's rounded. It's very non-threatening, which I think is important because of the entire vibe of Dinkum is that it's slow living. We're homesteading, we're getting away from the grind of city life, and so having the UI itself be like, it uses this playful font. It's playful, but it's not too wild. Everything is round. It sort of pops in with this gentle animation with these little bounces as you move around and click on things. I think using these calm, gentle pieces for the UI reinforces that quiet farm life vibe. And this is maybe one of the first times I've really thought about how UI ties into the themes. Like, I feel like it's easy to say, oh, this aesthetic matches this game. It's a little bit harder, at least for me, to think about things in terms of mood. Like, how does this UI make a person feel? And is that feeling what the game also makes you feel? I feel like it's a little bit different than aesthetics, but it's just as important, if not more important, to think about things in that way. So it's gonna be hard for me. It's gonna be hard for me because like I said, I don't have a lot of experience with this, but I'm gonna try really hard to think about how I want my game to feel and try to build a UI around that and supporting those feelings. Okay, thank you for listening to me ramble about game UI design. I hope it was useful or entertaining, or hopefully both. Both would be good. If you would like to see more videos from me, don't forget to subscribe if you would like to do that. And I will be back soon with another video, and I hope to see you there. Bye bye bye.